I worked for 22 years for the same company, and they gave me 7 years notice of my impending termination. No, really. Here's how. If you're new here, welcome. And my name's Jen. I make videos about my life and adventures as a 50-something silver and solo pre-retirement Gen Xer. A RIF is a reduction in force, and it's a permanent job loss. It's not a layoff. A layoff is temporary or supposed to be temporary in nature, an indication that you may be rehired at some point, and it's not the same, of course, as termination for cause. What happened to me was a RIF. The company that I worked for at the time of my dismissal was huge. It probably still is. Over 350,000 employees worldwide. They conducted reorgs and streamlining initiatives regularly. People who were knowledge banks for crucial processes, services, and platforms had been let go and had found other employment or just flat out refused to return because of the callous way in which they were treated. And I noticed that it was always I like to say, people who work for a living who were the ones being riffed and not the higher ups. The division that I worked in reorged probably 5 times in the 22 years that I worked there. The one that really opened my mind was the one in 2012, in which they riffed over 600 people out of our division. The choices seemed random to me and to my manager, who I was close to. And the business was being hurt by the absence of the people who had been riffed. It was then, after 15 years of working for this company and sticking my head in the sand or being just naive, that I realized that my job was on the block too. Nobody was safe, and I'd been lucky up until then. This is how I had a 7-year heads up about my upcoming RIF in 2019. In 2012, I came to my senses. Now I can hear people saying, I would have been out of there. There's no way I would have let a company treat me like that. And I hear you, I do. I did look for another job somewhat half-heartedly, but there are a lot of reasons why people will choose to remain in a toxic work environment. Some people will feel loyalty to the company, to the brand, to their coworkers. Nobody wants to leave people that they enjoy working with high and dry or stuck with a mountain of your work. And I felt this to some degree. I enjoyed the people that I worked with. Other people don't want to have to start all over again. They won't make as much money. They'll be at the bottom rung of the ladder. This was sort of me as well. Other people are afraid of having to go back to school, pay a whole bunch of money for new certifications or a whole new skill set that they will have to start over from scratch. For me, it was a combination of all of those things. And the most glaring reason that I chose to stay in a toxic work environment is the prospect of golden handcuffs. You feel chained to your employer because you've got seniority, your pension is growing, and you know exactly what's going to happen when you log in on Monday morning. It's very comforting. In Canada, there's no hard and fast rule of thumb for calculating what the severance payout would be for someone who is dismissed without cause, which would be the case in a RIF. Usually, employers will give 1 month of pay for each year of service. So working for, at that time, 15 years for this employer, I would be giving up 15 months of pay, more than a year of pay, if I left and just quit. Now, I know that this is vastly different than in the United States, where I believe the rule of thumb is 1 week of pay per month of service. So for me as a Canadian, I would be leaving a whole bunch more money on the table, 15 months of pay. And that was the major thing keeping me in the toxic workplace environment. And so started 7 years of hell. Now, I'm not going to get into the gory details, but I cried a lot during that 7 years, and I ended up being on antidepressive medication. It was not happy, but I did get the severance package that I had planned on in 2019. Now, would I go back to 2012 and tell my 2012 self, don't do it? I asked myself that a lot. It was difficult. It adversely affected my health, my physical well-being. Was it worth it? The answer is yes. Every time I ask myself, was it worth it? Would you go back and tell 2012 Jen not to do it? And my answer is, no, you should do it. You should do it. I'm happy with my choice. For those 7 years while I was living them, and at the time that I was living through that 7 years, I did not know that it would be 7 years. I only knew, I was sure, I believed that I would eventually get riffed. The odds were in my favor. It was a gamble, a lottery, but in the end, I knew that I would win. And as such, I started planning. I took online training, every course available that they had in their very large catalog. I also learned new skills from my coworkers and colleagues. Anything I didn't already know, I made a point to pay attention and to learn. I over-contributed to the company pension plan instead of my RRSP. I got every cent of the company match. It was a defined contribution plan, meaning I was the one funding my pension, and I was also the one making decisions on where it was invested. So I learned about the stock market. I learned about the mutual funds that were available through our pension fund administrator, and I tracked and tweaked where my contributions went to maximize the return on every penny. Now, importantly, in Canada, an RRSP is a registered retirement savings plan, and it is a government savings vehicle. You're allowed to contribute 18% of your income each year. When you contribute money to an RRSP, the money is tax advantaged, meaning that it's exempt from being taxed in the year that you make the contribution. And any unused room from each year can be carried forward into future years. Meaning, if I didn't contribute the maximum in 2012, and that leftover amount would carry forward and be added to the contribution limit for 2013, and if I kept on doing that, etc., well, you get where I'm going. This will become important later in my story. Just a disclaimer right now, I am not a financial advisor. I did not consult a financial advisor. I am only recounting my own personal experience, my choices for myself. Please do not take this as advice for your situation. I also stopped going above and beyond at work. I stopped doing more than I needed to. I gave them exactly what was in my job description and nothing more. I believe that's called quiet quitting now. But at the time in 2012, when I was quiet quitting, there was no term for it. I just knew that if they were going to be ruthless, then I was going to be ruthless too. When 2019 came and that meeting popped up in my calendar with no notice, a meeting with HR and my 2-up, I knew what was going to happen, and I figured I had my ducks in a row by then. But I was also anxious and scared and a little bit excited. I just heard my 2-up droning on a bunch of legalese, gobbledygook, and then saying that the HR lady on the phone with us as well would walk me through the rest of the process, and then he hung up. That was it. A bunch of legal stuff, pass over to HR, and then he hung up. There was no, sorry to lose you, Jen. We wish you well in your further endeavors, nothing. Just a hang up. And I knew then that my work to rule, my quiet quitting, my planning for this and sticking it out, I knew that that was the right thing for me to have done. I'm sure the HR lady was a little bit perplexed that I wasn't upset or in denial or dejected. I was actually happy and excited because I knew what I was getting, and this was the culmination of my plan. I ended up getting not 22 months of pay, but 25 months of pay. And I asked for the majority of it to be transferred directly into my RSP, which had lots of room in it by now. Not all of it, I couldn't fit all of it in there, but most of it, which means that I won't be taxed on that amount until I withdraw it, hopefully in retirement when my income is being taxed at a lesser rate. The rest of it I had to take in cash. They had withholding tax, and I had to pay tax again on it. But I knew that that would happen. It helped me get out of debt, and I figured I had about 1 year to be able to figure out what I needed to do. I couldn't retire, I knew that. I was also at my breaking point, mentally, emotionally, physically. I needed a timeout. I needed a break. And I took 6 months. 6 months of not looking for work, not wanting to look for work. I needed 6 months to recover. I don't think that I was fully recovered after 6 months, but it was a good start. And I just did things that made me happy. I slept a lot. I read a lot. I did not think about work, or I tried not to think about work or about finding work or about my retirement or how I was going to fund my retirement. I tried not to think about that. I just took time for myself. I remember actually about, maybe a week and a half or a week even after the fateful phone call with HR, after all of the money matters had been settled and transferred properly, I called up the Wickaninnishin, which is a very posh resort on Vancouver Island here in Tofino, and I booked a long weekend with them. And I got there, unloaded, saw my room and the view that my room had, and I went right back downstairs and asked them if I could extend my stay for another couple days. It was expensive, but it was way worth it. And it was just for me. Now, I haven't done that since, but I still remember taking something just for me and relaxing. I went in there, roundabout dining room by myself. I got spa services. I walked the beach. And sometimes I just laid in bed and stared at that fireplace and the view. But I needed it. And I would really recommend it if you can. You don't know how tired it can make you to be anxious and depressed all the time. Take the time you need. As a single woman, I had always embraced change and adapted quickly to it. You have to when you're solo. Every chance, every choice, every responsibility is you. It's on you. Job loss was just another transition to adapt to. Within 5 or 6 months, I was perusing the government job boards in Victoria, BC, which is the capital of British Columbia. So there are lots of government jobs. And I tweaked my resume. That was a hard one after 22 years. And started looking, started submitting. And I think I probably submitted a good 100 resumes through those job boards. And not just for jobs that I felt that I was qualified for or that closely resembled the one that I had just been terminated from. I was looking for jobs that I could transfer skills to. And I got maybe 5 interviews out of those 100 resumes. I got a lot of rejection. And finally, I got the one interview that counted, the one that I wanted. And 2 more interviews and a presentation later, I landed the job that I needed. And it wasn't even for less money, which was what I was expecting. It was for more money than I had been making before. And it was with an employer who cared about their employees. And they have a defined benefit pension, not a defined contribution pension. Meaning the defined benefit pension is a guarantee pension, not one that I have to manage myself and is all on me, something brand new. Lots of people never see their RIF or their layoff coming. And I can only begin to understand the sense of shock and loss that that brings. I understand a little bit, but not fully. The rest of the people who are laid off or terminated, you knew that it was coming, just like I did. You saw the writing on the wall, or you should have. That big nudge from the universe for me was in 2012 when I realized nobody is special, everybody can be replaced. Don't atrophy in place or become like a deer in the headlights because you didn't see it coming or you didn't want to see it coming. Grab the chance, make the decision for yourself. Don't let it be made for you. That is my best advice. If you see the termination coming, look at where you are on your employment journey. Are you inside of 10 years with the same company? Are you right at 10 years? Do you have a lot of time in with that company? This is all going to be factored into your end decision, but you must make one. The decision is yours. Don't let the employer make the decision for you. If you decide to look for another job and quit, then good, you should do that. If you decide you're going to stick it out like I did, make a plan, stick it out, have a goal. If you see the signs and you say to yourself, I know that they're trying to get rid of me, I know that I'm on the block, but maybe if I work harder or work smarter or transfer to a different department, I won't be on the block. That is a decision as well, but it's only one that you can make. And the fact that you would be the one making it, you would be deciding to work smarter, you would be deciding to work harder, you would be deciding to go for a promotion or a lateral move. Again, that's you deciding and not letting the employer just catch you out and say, bye-bye. My point is that you need to do the work, you need to do the research, you need to talk to a financial advisor or a close friend or family member, someone that you can bounce ideas off of, and make sure that you are the one making the decisions when your termination is pending. Don't let a job loss in your 50s or your 60s be something that sneaks up on you and something that you didn't plan on. Be confident. You have a lot of experience. Somewhere out there, there's someone looking for someone like you. So here I am. I'm 58, 5 years post-termination. I'm happy. I'm healthy-ish. I'm working at a job that I love. I'm thriving. And it's all because I saw the writing on the wall and decided that I would manage my job termination and what that would look like instead of just letting it happen to me. I am pleased that I did that. I'm happy with the outcome. You can do it too.